Welcome to our podcast, Life Eventually.
And we are just two women
working to figure it out eventually.
I am Dr. Alicia Yvette.
I am Melinda Yvette. Welcome back, everybody. We made it to episode 6. Yes, bring all the applause. This episode, we're going to be talking about what was going on in our lives during that time where, if you've listened to the introduction, there was a big gap between Alicia and I's friendship. I mean, we were never not friends. We just never saw each other. But we're going to break down that time frame because one of our listeners, actually one of Alicia's friends, said, "What were you guys doing?" Because we kind of just went right past all that and decided to say, hey, but this is who we are.
Yes. So, I mean, from 2008, when we talked about our first episode, this 13 years ago to now. And I believe before we started this podcast, we had only really met up one time, which we can talk about that. I'll start. Once I left high school, I stayed in Brockton for the summer. I worked. At the time, I had a job as a medical secretary. So I would float to different offices if their secretary was out. So it was really busy. It was a full-time job. It was a hard job. So I spent most of my time doing that, saving up for college, getting all my stuff together. And then in the fall, I moved to Connecticut to go to Trinity College. I lived there full-time. I worked jobs there. I was a chemistry major. My first 2 years, I did track, indoor and outdoor. I was a thrower. I was very involved in the campus. It's a very small college, but I was involved in the Black Women's Organization and a host of other events and so forth. And then in 2012, I finished up in college and I graduated. And about 3 days after I graduated, I moved to Atlanta to start graduate school. At the end of college, that was a hard time. It sounded like it was like really happy and achieved, but I actually really struggled with depression at that time a lot. It affected my studies, and I wasn't in the best relationship. I was with Junior's dad, so we moved out together, and it was as toxic as it could be on both ends. I think I see now that it wasn't just him, it was me too. I had Junior, and then I was in graduate school, and I didn't feel any support, so I left Atlanta, came back to Brockton, quit graduate school, and I felt like it was forced. I felt like my son's dad, we got into a fight, and he was like, "I'm taking our son." I was like, "No, you're not, and I'll quit school." So I left, and then when I came back, I was staying with his mom. So we were living there, no job, no place to stay. Well, he had a car, but I didn't.
Yeah.
And Junior was only a few months old. From there, it was just getting worse and worse, the relationship. So I moved out of his mom's house and moved in with my family, and his dad came too. We moved again. So it was just kind of going where we were allowed to. Yeah, like we just stayed with other people. And eventually I was just like, I broke up with him. And then that's close to when me and you reunited. But a lot of it was just before kids. It always felt like I had a lot of stress and heartache and depression. And then now that I have kids, I'm like, oh my God, I don't even have time to think about those same things. Like, I thought life was so hard before children. And, like I used to just be able to get up and just focus on myself. And I don't feel like I fully appreciated it.
Absolutely. I don't think anybody actually realizes how good we have it when we're just thinking about ourselves. And then when you have a child, you're like, wait a minute, now I have to think about how we can get through this, not just how I will get through this. So it's definitely something that people do not appreciate as much. When I left high school, I just kind of decided not to have friends with anybody, really. I kind of lost contact with everyone. I worked a lot. I had 2 jobs all the time. I was forced to go to community college. I begged my parents not to do it, but they were very adamant that I need to go to college. And I went, and I really just did not succeed in it. I just was not in the mental space to want to do it. I think high school had been so stressful for me that the idea of
more school,
and then being around more people just was not attractive to me at the time. but I went through some relationships, and I definitely was happy that I did go to community college, just because I did get to take radio production, and that was like really exciting for me, and I really loved it. It was so much fun for me. My professor always was like, "Oh my God, this is something that I can see you doing," but I just didn't know how that works, so I just never pursued it. But after college, like I said, I went only for a year, so that's what, 2009.
Mm-hmm.
So after that, I just continued having jobs here and there. I was at CVS for a while. I also was at Build-A-Bear, which was super fun. I know
Sounds like it.
people are always like, really, Build-A-Bear? I was a manager at Build-A-Bear. I made it up there. I had a great time. I had so much fun, and all my Build-A-Bear people, they know I literally had too much fun. I really shouldn't have had as much fun as I did there. I was once the mascot. I mean, I sweated like no other, but it was so much fun. I don't care. It was fun. I worked at like Forever 21. I mean, I just bounced around. And then around 2010, that's when I met Dimitri again, because we were friends, but he at the time was in North Carolina living there. And then he reached out to me, and then I put the moves on him. You know, he had no choice at that point. I put the moves. I said, yeah, you're definitely going to be mine now. You're coming back home. Okay, well, this is it. We were really good friends, though, and then we started dating in 2010. And then I think a little bit after that, that's when we started a few years after that, right?
Yeah, it had to be around 2014.
Yeah.
Because I was in Connecticut up until 2012, and
Yeah.
then up until 2013, I was in Atlanta.
Okay.
And I came back in mid 2013, but then I like crawled into a hole.
Yeah. I in 2012 then got like my first like big real job that like was good for me. I loved, and I was working at Neighborhood Health Plan, and I worked myself up there, so I was really happy with being there. But then I got pregnant.
Yeah.
In 2013.
I remember, I think I did see you on the train sometimes, on the commuter rail or
Yeah.
the red line.
That too. I was on both.
Yes. I think I did. We did actually see each other. I just
Yeah.
remembered that.
I was hiding my pregnancy from the world. Not that I did it on purpose. It's just I don't like people.
Yeah, in the business. Yeah.
I didn't really like the people I was around, like the supposed friends that I had. So I just kind of just stayed to myself and pulled the Kylie Jenner, and was like, yeah, I'm just going to be pregnant and not say anything. And I left Facebook and then came back and I had a baby. Yeah. But I liked that job so much. It was just too much for me, as far as like I'm a first time parent, and the idea of like seeing my child for 2 hours a day was just not my ideal situation, because I would have to be at work by a certain time. So that means I had to be up at like crack of dawn in order to take the commuter rail or take the red line in. And then I'm walking part of it too.
Yeah.
And I wasn't getting home until like after 6. So think
it's a
about
long
that.
day commuting to
Yeah.
Boston. I mean, I was right there too.
It just didn't make sense for me, because I'm like, I'm going to get home and then I'm going to spend 2 hours with you, and then I have to go to bed because I got to do this all over again. So I just didn't think that was the way I wanted to be a parent, at least for my first child. I don't know. Maybe if I have more kids, I'd probably be like, you know what, screw it. It's worth it. I need to do it. And honestly, that's one of the biggest regrets I have, is leaving that job, because I really loved it and it was good for me. But the whole idea of being a first-time parent and not seeing my child was just so not how I expected being a parent for the first time. So I just left that job after having Sophia, which would have brought me towards the end of 2014.
Yeah, because she's a year younger than Junior.
Yeah, she's August of 2014.
Yeah, so I was out here with no job, no place to stay, no car.
Yeah.
Crappy boyfriend who proposed to me just because he thought I was leaving him.
Wow.
from there, I just started getting more and more upset. Like, I already had left graduate school. I feel like I never forgave him for that. So I started talking to Cliff. There was a little bit of scandal. Some people felt like it was too quick, or that maybe, oh, no, there's no way that they weren't talking before I left his dad, which I know what I did, and there was no overlap. And I was over it. I was broken up with his dad in my mind long before it happened. It was just
But isn't that true for women? You break up with them, like you've already checked out in your mind before you actually break up.
long before.
Yeah.
I mean, I was so over it, and I just wanted to move on so badly. And I think once I found out that Cliff was interested and was just waiting on me, I was like, oh, okay, I gotta go. Like, 'cause I do feel like one of the things that I did that was unfair is my son's dad. I would expect him to be more like Cliff, because I dated Cliff in high school for 3.5 years. And then we broke up for 4 years, and I had my son. And a lot of that time I did try to, like, make him try to be consistent, or, I, like, wanted him to go to school and stuff, because he went to art school and didn't make it. And I just knew there was potential there, so I was like, just do it, like, this way. And it was, like, the whole time me and Cliff weren't together. He graduated college. He worked the job the whole time. He had his own car. He helped his family out, like, doing things that I was trying to force someone else to do.
Yeah.
So once I was like, if I could have the person I'm trying to make him into, like, that's better even for him. Like, for at the time he was probably, like, pissed, but I think in the end he could see that we just weren't working. We do have a good co-parenting relationship now, which I'm thankful for, and my son has a sister on that side. But when I started grad school, I told myself I cannot pass graduate school if I'm with this guy. Like, I will fail again, and I will have to quit again, and I'm not doing that. Either I'm going to go get my PhD, or I'm going to have a family with my son's dad and have that one perfect unit married family that, he was telling me I was going to ruin if I left. Like, he would be like, oh, you're taking away stability and a two-parent home from your kid. And I'm like, that's a totally selfish thing to say. Like, we weren't working. Like, I wasn't trying to take anything away from my child. I was trying to break up an unhappy relationship on both ends. People were mad, and I worried about how Cliff's family was going to feel receiving me after 4 years and another, I come back with another person's child, like, and then there was, I worried that they would think that, oh, I'm just going to run back to the baby dad. Like, now that I have a kid, like, he's always going to have pull, and I'll just run back. But I think, especially in the beginning, he didn't see Junior that much. So I was able to tell his parents, like, he hasn't seen his kid in 2 weeks. I don't talk to him. And they're like, okay, so some people had to say stuff. Like, there was some friends who were not happy that we were back together. They're like, you crazy, she hurt you. And I was just like, I wouldn't come back unless I knew I wanted things to be different. Like, I wouldn't waste his time.
Yeah. I mean, during my time too, like, I moved out on my own directly, like, pretty much right after high school. I got my car in 2010 by myself, and I was really proud of that. And I had some relationships that sucked, of course. I was dating a guy that I met at college, and it was like one of those type of guys that you're like, there's no effing way that I pulled him. Yeah. Because he was just...
Those be the worst ones.
A beautiful specimen.
Yeah. Those be the worst relationships.
To a lot of people. But, I mean, he was not ugly, obviously. But, like, he was, like, the talk of the town pretty much in the college. So I was kind of, like, overwhelmed that he liked me. And, like, he showed me new things that, I guess it was, like, my first, like, grown relationship. Because we were, like, out on dates, like, in Boston, and, like, he was showing me places and doing just really nice things. So I was really happy with that. And then we broke up. And, of course, his reasoning was, you're too focused on me. I need you to focus on you.
Did you a favor, though?
Right? I'm like, thanks. Gotta go.
Yeah, anyway, it still hurts because you don't believe it when they tell you that.
It hurt. It freaking hurt. But that is probably one of the best things that happened, too. Even so, like, I had my own place at that point. After he broke up with me, I had my own place. I had my own car. And he was still living at his mother's house. So take that. Take that. Take that. But, yeah, I mean, afterwards, I started talking to Dimitri, and that was always really stressful for me when we were talking, because we were talking on the phone for a while. And I was just really nervous because we were really good friends in high school. And I was worried that, like when you are talking to somebody on the phone, you have like that different relationship, and then you see that person in person, and then you're like,
Yes.
I don't know if this is what I wanted for real. But we have a connection, but it's just the in person didn't match up.
Yeah.
So that's what I was worried about a lot of the time. So I was freaking out when he moved back. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to see him. And it's not that I was scared to see him. It was just like I was more scared to see if this was going to be real or not. Or was he going to see me and be like, dude, that's just my friend. Like, that's weird. Like, what was I doing these couple of months talking to her? I can still remember everything I was wearing that day and everything. It's like I was so stressed out. And I was so happy that he saw me as more than just his friend. It definitely was a little strange at first, but it was like the best thing that happened for me, because after being with him, there was like a different kind of stability that came around with it. And I had started working at a job not too long before he came around, called JRC. And that job sucked.
I know people who've worked there. It sucked.
It's
not ideal.
So,
they just paid a little bit better than other jobs in the area at the time, but they don't tell you all the job hazards. Yep. And, you can get hurt. You can, emotional things that you go through while you're there. It's just crazy.
And so, for context, JRC is a place where they work with mentally disabled people and also behavioral challenged children. So there's residential homes, and they have the actual school that is specific for them. So you could work either within the school, or you can work as a mental health assistant in the school or in the residential homes. And I used to work in the residential homes. And, there was a lot of great kids that were in there. Yes, they had their issues, but there was a lot of great kids that I learned and, became friends with. But I also got really hurt there. Mm-hmm. I've been kicked in the back. I was bit on my back. I was headbutted.
Oh, my goodness.
That's the one that took me out pretty much. I got headbutted, and I had a nose contusion, a really bad concussion. I had some short-term memory loss for a few months that, was consistent. And
did they compensate you?
No. I mean, you you don't really get nothing.
That's wild.
So it was not a good time for me. But Dimitri was there for me from that time when I was there. I mean, I used to cry calling him when he lived in North Carolina, crying like, I have to go to this house, and I know when I go to this house, it's not good. I'm going to be hurt. So they never put enough staff members here. I mean, I've gone through some really horror stories at this place. I was once in a home where students basically broke the cameras and unplugged the phones, and ran around trying to shank me.
Oh my goodness.
And that happened for hours. So I was literally running through a 3-story home, running away the best I could to get away from these students that, for whatever reason, just decided to target me. And you want to know what I did?
What'd you do?
I opened a door, and that's why I was targeted.
Because you opened the door?
Yeah, I opened the front door to let one of the students in that lived there.
That's wild.
It was not a fun environment. But Dimitri was just really always there for me. He took care of me after that. I just was really I was bedridden for a lot of it. My face was just messed up because I got hit directly in between my nose. I'm surprised I didn't break anything. I was super bruised, and I just was not in a good headspace. So he took care of me. So that was really great. And that showed a lot to me that he cared, because he really was there all the time for me. Even to this day, I don't really remember driving myself to the hospital. I don't remember some of the phone calls I made. So it was a big deal in my life. So anyway.
I'm glad you're out of that job.
Yeah.
And I think that pretty much brings us, I think you were still working, you're after this job, after that job, but then working in Boston is when, I don't know if we saw each other on the train and we were like, hey, like we hit each other up afterwards and we were like, let's link up.
Yeah.
But you came over when I was living at my foster mother's house. I think I just started graduate school. I think it was 2014.
So was I...
And I think it might have been my son's birthday or something.
I think it was after Sophia because I wasn't pregnant when I saw you.
Yeah, it was after Sophia, yes.
Yeah, so
she was born. She was home with Dimitri.
Yeah. And
I think you brought over some Malibu and I had some cookie dough and tried to make cookies.
Oh, my God. First of all, let's just talk about that Malibu. I love me some Malibu. And it's like a guilty pleasure. I just love Malibu. It's a problem.
I think we had pineapple juice too. So I think we just had Malibu and pineapple juice.
Yep,
And we were
a little bit
off.
of cranberry in that bad boy, and you're good to go. And I had came over.
And you were hungry.
I was like, yo, I want them cookies though.
I was like, all right, bet. I'm going to bake them cookies right now. And then the timer went off, and I looked in, and I was like, oh, they're still a little juicy. Let me put them in for a few minutes. And Melinda was like, no, they're going to burn. I was like, no, I got this.
Yeah, no. And then she was chit-chatting. We're laughing. We're talking. And those poor cookies. R.I.P. R.I.P.
I burnt them.
She was literally just chit-chatting. And all I kept thinking is, this is going to be the end of these poor cookies. How are they going to make it out of that oven?
I was like, I got it. Don't worry.
And then she pulls these cookies out.
They were dark brown.
I
mean, we just had alcohol, full stomach of alcohol with no food.
I was so sad. I've never been more sad. I was just like, girl, but I told you, take them out. She's like, no, but just a few more minutes.
I was like, I like the brown edges.
Yep.
I was like, they're going to be too soft.
Instant failure.
Yes. And then Melinda didn't talk to me for 6 years after that.
Yeah. I mean, that was a serious offense. I mean, anybody in their right mind would say, yep, she's not worthy. She's got to be on timeout for a while.
And I messaged her and I was like, I'll buy more cookies. You can cook them. I'll come to you. You could do the cookies. And then I didn't hear from her until I think it was only a few months ago.
Yeah, but it wasn't really any hard feelings. We just, I don't know.
Got busy again.
Life started happening, and I just had a baby. So,
I just started graduate school.
Yeah, there was a lot going on.
Time.
Yeah, we had a lot going on. I do remember you reaching out, though, saying, like, okay, you can make the cookies this time. And I'm like, yeah, this time they'll actually be good.
And we still haven't made cookies yet.
I definitely need to make cookies with you again so then we can actually fix that poor memory and put a new memory there that actually is with good, soft, slightly crispy cookies.
Yes, my cookies are way better anyway, so
we'll have to see.
Maybe we can have a cookie competition.
Absolutely. I'm with it.
Yes. And then I think that's pretty much it. Like, I mean, and then after we had the cookies, I was in graduate school for 5 years with Cliff. I think 2 years later, I got engaged and bought a house a month later with Cliff, which to me was like, okay, the house is bigger than the engagement because it's like, engagement, it's like I take off the ring, like, okay, we're not getting married anymore. But a house, I'm like, we'd have to sell this house. I figure who's going to live here, how we're going to figure things out. So I was like, we're married.
You guys are glued.
Yeah. And then he stuck out 4 years of graduate school after that with me. We definitely had our ups and downs. And then I graduated.
Yeah.
Now we're here. I got time to do podcasts and have a regular job.
Yeah. So for me, after having Sophia, I had a lot of issues with depression, as we've talked about. I could not hold a job to save my life. Like,
it's hard for anyone.
I was literally at jobs for like less than 6 months every time. 6 months, 6 years.
How do you sleep? You know, like it's impossible.
It was really tough. So I had a job at a hospital. I also worked at an eye place. What else did I do? I had a lot of like empty space in between. I was just being a mom and it was tough. So a lot of the stress was on Dimitri, paying for all the bills. And I felt really bad because I had been such a person that always had a job and I was very consistent. And then suddenly I had my child and...
She was the job.
Yeah, but I
The
couldn't.
most important one.
I couldn't like bring any money in, and I just felt terrible for putting all of that pressure on to Dimitri. And after that, I started in 2017 is when I became a school bus driver. Dimitri and I both work at the same company, but we just work in different towns. But he is working in the garage, and I'm an actual bus driver. So I drive, and I have a good time doing that. And I think it was like a happy medium for me because I don't like people at that time. Like I just couldn't deal because of my depression. And being a bus driver, it's almost like you're your own boss because you're not having to sit in a cubicle around other people, and you're not having to have to talk to anybody that you work
not
with.
long conversations.
Yeah, you're seeing them when you clock in and when you clock out. So you're not having to really deal with other humans. And I've always had a love for children. So, I mean, I worked at Build-A-Bear. So working at a school, like working for the schools was a no-brainer. I'm like, I can tolerate little humans, you know?
Just not the big ones.
Yeah, the big ones drive me nuts. So granted, the little ones drive me nuts
and then
too,
you
but
get
they're
the
more
gap
fun.
in the day. You get the middle of the day to be with your daughter. It's you know.
So it definitely worked out for me because then I'm not pushing myself too much because I'm only working a couple hours in the morning and a couple hours in the afternoon. And as you said, I'm able to still be home and be a parent to Sophia. And now, even now, like if something happens in school, I'm available during the day to get her or, you know, be there for her or be a part of any of the school activities that she's doing. So that really makes me happy. I mean, I do want to eventually get like a career going, which hopefully this podcast will definitely do for us because I genuinely love this. Like this is something that I've genuinely wanted to do in life. I was even told in elementary school, like, oh my God, your voice.
Your radio voice.
Yes, you have a radio voice. And I'm like, thanks. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with that. And then, you know, I was in high school. I was part of TV production when I was in Massachusetts. And then I also had lived in Arizona for a short time, and I was in their TV production. And then college, I did the radio production. So it's just something that has been nagging me to do it. And thankfully, because we reunited, and I would never have known that this was something that you also wanted to do. And look at how fast it's already progressed.
5
I'm
episodes.
excited. Yeah.
And I wanted to do it because I had commented on LinkedIn on a post that was a podcast, and they were asking for women in science topics. And I wrote the impact of the choice to have or not have children, and how does that impact women's careers in science? And they were like, hey, would you mind being a host? And I was like, okay. I didn't know what I was doing. But after that, you know, the person who hosted it's STEM podcast or like Women in Science or Wisest Women podcast. And I know they've changed the name a couple of times, so I want to make sure I give them the shout out. But Dr. Risha Chandra, she was really nice, and she really encouraged me. And actually, we had our own chat where I went into my life story. And then I also won the 3-minute thesis competition for 3rd place, and I got featured in their podcast. So after like getting a little bit of juice, I was like, you know, I have a lot to say. I think it would be really interesting if eventually I started my own. And I mean, that was like the end of the thought process. Like, eventually I'll do it. And then when you hit me up, I was like, why not? Like, I love turning words into actions and not just talk about it, but be about it. So we just started taking those first steps, and
it was fast.
Yeah.
When I tell you fast, like
that's how I move usually.
We had a short conversation on Snapchat, and then she was like, do you have time right now? I was like, excuse me? Like, I don't want to, impose. I don't want to be like taking your dream or anything, your thought of doing this and, including myself in it. But she was like, no, let's see what happens.
I mean, neither one of us alone was doing it.
Yeah.
It's, it's not like, oh, I'm already doing it and you're trying to like take it over. It's like, no, neither one of us have done anything yet. It's like, hey, if we can have something together, nothing separately. To me, it made more sense to get it done and get started and just go for it. That's typically how I do things, because the way my brain works, I will think about something and want to do it. And if I don't start getting the ball rolling, that thought will just sit there and I'll just be onto something else, especially where I do so much. And sometimes it's hard to get all my attention and focus together. But I think it's really worth it and it's paying off.
Yeah, I think it's been a really fun experience. We've learned a lot so far already, and we're basically self-taught now because we had a little bit of help from your friend.
Anthony is the one who helped us with the audio
Anthony.
the first
Yes.
time. He helped us with our
Sorry.
first episode, but he gave us a lot of information on how to come up with music for our song. For the beginning song, and then also just a lot of tips for us. And so we thanked him, but he made sure we had to figure out our own stuff after that.
Yeah. So, that was good, though, because we wanted to know how to do it ourselves anyway. Like, I genuinely want to learn how to edit and do things on my own so that we're not having to be dependent on anybody. And I just love the idea of having my own thing that I'm learning on my own and that I'm perfecting as time goes on. And then I can put that as a notch in my belt.
Yes.
You know?
And I love doing that too. Like a lot of people sometimes want to do something and they don't act on it. They don't put the work and energy it takes to make something happen and to then improve it or to stay consistent. So, my thing is like slow and steady wins the race. So I'm like consistency over a long time. I think we're going to get really far.
Yeah. So that's pretty much where we were during that time.
Yeah. And I'd like to mention some progressions that we have. Melinda and I would like to start spotlighting local businesses and artists on our show. So if anyone is interested and we can talk and work out an arrangement, we'd love to interview anyone who is a self-business owner or just has a real talent that they're also trying to grow, just like we're trying to grow podcasting.
You're trying to get it off the ground. And we can either do like an interview or we can always do like a short little commercial with your information and put it within the podcast.
Yeah, so just DM us and we'll definitely work with you. If you have any ideas for future episodes, thanks again, Darion. Hopefully we will be hosting you soon for our own episode because you have been a wonderful source of feedback and ideas for us, and we cannot thank you enough. And the last thing, we would like to try something new with the comments on our posts. So
on Instagram, we want to be able to see what our audience is doing. Like, have you been listening to every single episode? Are you still trying to get into listening to it? Like, you just haven't found the time yet? Or have you only listened to a couple, but, you're a little behind? So what we want to do is have these emojis that will tell us that. So if you haven't gotten around to actually listening, but you want to, obviously, put an egg emoji. If you've listened to a few of our episodes, not all of them, put a caterpillar. And if you are our day one A1 and you've listened to every single episode, leave a butterfly. I'm sure you can see the progression on that. So an egg will just resemble a little cocoon.
Yes, you're about to click that play button.
Yep, your little cocoon in the egg. And then you're going to be a caterpillar. And then you're going to listen to every single episode we put out. And you're going to be a beautiful butterfly. So that's what we want to see from you guys. Please interact with us. We want to see you.
Yes, and again, let us know if there's anything you want to hear or if there's a topic you'd like to guest host with us, if you're a business owner, if you're an artist, anything. We are looking to keep creating content which requires help from the audience. So with that, life comes together eventually. Thanks for listening. Tune in with us for our next episode.
Please follow us on Spotify, Apple Music, and Anchor FM. And we're also on Instagram and YouTube, which can be found in the description links.
Make sure you comment and let us know what you want to hear in future episodes.
Welcome to our podcast, Life Eventually.
And we are just two women
working to figure it out eventually.
I am Dr. Alicia Yvette.
I am Melinda Yvette.
Everyone, this is episode 7. Today, we are going to take a little side step from what we had planned originally for today, and we'll just talk about a little bit about our lives and what's been going on recently. Melinda, how's everything going with you?
Listen, for me, I'm hanging, and I'm hanging. I'm hoping to just get some work done and just get through this, because it's a struggle for us every time we start these podcasts. Every time we start, we're looking at each other like, all right, what do we say? What do you say to start this? But once we start, we're good. It's just the struggle bus is real today.
Every time. And I mean, when I say struggle bus, I mean, it's been raining all week, like thunderstorms every single day, which I feel like just already messes up my mood in the summer. And it just feels like lately nothing is going my way. Like everything is just extremely difficult. Like today we got here on time, but guess what? We had to wait.
Let's also remind the viewers, Alicia's time is not on time. Her time for on time is just slightly late, but
if I'm 15 minutes within on time, I'm on time. But for a lot of people, that's like really late. But I'm not working on it. That's a low priority right now. I've been struggling. I mean, I think these past few weeks, I'm getting closer to 6 months in my job and still having some difficulties in the lab. And it's just been a lot of stress and a hard time sleeping, trying to just get everything together. And it just feels like the harder I try, the more things do not go my way.
Yeah, I mean, even being here, we got here on Alicia's on time, and then we were still late because then we couldn't get the podcast studio to open. So that took another, 10, 15 minutes, which made us later. Then we get in, and then we couldn't get some of the equipment to work correctly, which took another 10 minutes. So, yeah, struggle bus is real.
And it's definitely contagious because I definitely bring the struggle bus element, and I think you can see that things just never go my way, no matter how hard I try.
I have definitely understood that very well.
I don't know how I just keep going, because sometimes today I just really felt like, dang, sometimes I really wish I was just born somebody else, because I don't understand why I struggle so much with certain things. And speaking of which, just in all accounts, it's been very difficult to be on a routine and focus on work. And then I've also just had difficulties with dealing with people like family and Facebook. And, after getting a degree, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to get a job. I'll have everything together. I got my kids, I got my house. But then there's just those moments that remind me I just still have a lot of growth I need to do for myself and how I respond to others. So it's like, there's always, people, you have every reason to say that, well, this person made me upset, which made me do this. But in actuality, we are in charge of our own emotions and such. But that's so much easier for me to say than practice at times. Yeah. So recently, been working a lot lately, feeding cells every day, being in every single day. So I decided to bring my grandmother in with me to the lab, which was so much fun. I think I might even post on the YouTube the picture of Grandma. She looks so professional, and
that's awesome.
I got her a lab coat and some gloves, and she was like, "I look like somebody." So cute.
That's awesome.
I brought Sage, and there's a nice little community room, and they got some coffee. Well, Grandma got coffee, not Sage. Sage got her snacks. So my grandmother, she's very self-conscious about her image. We could probably go into this another episode, but she was a Black woman, growing up in Boston, married to a white man. She's always been very self-conscious about her image. So when I took the photos at work, I took some pictures, and they looked really good. The lighting was amazing, and she just looks like she could be a real scientist. She asked me to not post, certain ones, but me being me, and she's not on Facebook, I was like, I'm going to post all 3 anyways because they all look good. And
Shame.
I just love my grandma, I was like, she's like one of my kids. I'm going to show her off. I don't care if you're embarrassed, you want to be humble. I don't care. So then her sister ends up sharing the picture with another sister who's not on Facebook, and it got back to my grandmother, and my grandmother's critical of her pictures and her images.
Yeah, and I think she's just trying to look out for you. She just doesn't want you to get in trouble, and she already had a great time, and she just doesn't want that good time to end up being a bad thing.
Yeah, she didn't want anything to interfere with my job. And anybody who knows Grandma, she's like a big ball of just a worry wart, and I think that's where I get a little bit of it from, just stress. And, my grandma was like, just let everyone know, don't be sharing my pictures. So I was like, okay. Got you, Grandma. I go on my Facebook, and I kind of wrote a status don't be sharing Grandma's pictures, with kind of the mad face.
Yeah.
And I tagged my aunt who did it. So I was being a little petty, but it was just kind of like reflex, just like, okay, my grandma's mad, I'm mad. And it was like 5 minutes, and I was like, all right, let me not. I deleted it, and then I messaged her, and I was like, hey, auntie, can you not share pictures with, other auntie? And she's like, all right, well, I won't do that no mo, like something weird. And I was like, you just know how she is. This has always been a thing with her. Like, just don't, like, let it get back to her like that, like, she's worried because she knows so-and-so's not on Facebook. Can you just not? She's upset. And she was like, okay, whatever. And then, like, 20 minutes later, she was like, oh, see, each and one of you on your deathbeds.
Whoa.
So
that escalated
yeah,
very fast.
And so I saw it and I commented it. I was like, girl, bye, you're really bad because I asked you not to share a picture. Like, you're really gonna go into deathbeds over that? And then she like clapped back with like something like, well, you're so-called educated. Oh. And I was just like, okay, minus the so-called. And so it just kept going back and forth, and it ended up degrading to like me saying the deathbed phrase back to her, because when she said each and every one of you, I was like, oh, she talking about my grandma too. My grandma didn't even say nothing directly to her. Like, it was me. Like, I'm the one who came mad aggressive. Like, if anything, be mad at me. Don't be mad at grandma. Like, she's just like that. Like, just who cares?
And you would think that she'd know that if that's her sister.
Yes, and that's what I wrote to her. Is like, you know how she is. And so a few days later, I get a call. I'm at work. It's like normal work hours, and I'm fully like, I have to wear a lab coat, goggles, sterile sleeves, gloves, ethanol on the gloves to make sure everything's sterile. And I was suited up, but my grandmother called me, so I kind of like took off one of my gloves, answered the phone, and she tells me she's in the hospital, which I'm like super busy, and I'm like, okay. I was like, are you all right? Like, do you need me to leave? And she was like, no, I'm just, like getting checked out. Like, I've been feeling unbearable, like I haven't been feeling well. It's kind of unbearable today.
Oh, no.
Cool. So finally, when I being able to get a hold of her, she's not answering her phone. It's going to voicemail every time.
No, that's scary.
Yes. And so I wait, I get home, and I left a little earlier than I wanted to from work. I think I left at 5, which is not really the best time to leave because of traffic, but I did. And I keep calling her just straight to voicemail. I ended up calling all the hospitals in the area. So I'm sure you didn't actually see all this unfold because you're not on Facebook much.
Yeah, I don't really go on Facebook. I learned long ago that Facebook is super toxic, and I just feel like the energy on Facebook is not as positive as it probably should be, and I just avoided it. So for me, I've basically been years sober from Facebook. The only reason why I'm really back on is for the podcast, and prior to the podcast, I was doing the soap business, which I might get back into. We'll talk about that later. But anyway, yeah, so I don't know. Facebook, it's a hit or miss. So I can understand that whole wanting to put a status out and saying what you have to say and then thinking about it afterwards and going, ugh, that probably wasn't the best way to do it. And then you delete it, and then you're like, damn, but
can't undelete it from people's
X amount
memory.
of people have already seen this, and whatever the case may be. I didn't see anything because, like I say, I'm not on Facebook.
But your family member did,
but
who
yes.
I just met. And it's like, that's when it sets in, is when I start thinking about all the people who, like, okay, yeah, I meant it for one person. I'm, like, literally so angry. I can only, like, tunnel vision and see that one person. But then it's like, oh, I have old professors from my PhD programs on my page. Like, I have...
Oh boy.
Contacts from podcasting, contacts from genealogy who are like also seeing me like kind of like, well, in my head it's understandable, and it's not even out of self-defense. Or none of this started because I felt the way about how something that was happening to me. And that's almost a lot of my conflicts is always because I get so defensive over other people.
Yeah.
Especially my children and my grandmother. I will literally go to war. So, that was definitely a lesson for the week to like, yeah, I am so-called educated or not without the so-called, but that does not mean I've mastered every aspect of life or every aspect of doing the right thing in the right moment, especially when you feel disrespected or you feel like someone you love is disrespected. So I believe that someone can speak intentions and bring negative energy. So like when someone says that, I just take that so seriously, even though it's maybe a little superstitious. But in my mind, the events were connected. Like,
yeah, I mean, I could definitely see how you connected the dots there, because I would have saw that too and been like, wow, you just said that, and then look at where your sister ended up in the ER. Like, that's why you really need to be careful with the things that you speak out, because those things can turn into something. And I think, to me, it does feel like because you put that energy out, that's why certain things started happening, like grandma going to the ER. Not saying that she's responsible for her health issues, but responsible in the way of putting out that negative energy, and then that negative energy going on to grandma for that. I mean, I'm not saying that she's responsible, but I agree that you can say things and it just snowballs.
yeah, and I try not to wish bad on others and say things like that. I just think I just took that so seriously, and I feel like sometimes be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
I couldn't find my grandmother. Really worried about her. She's been sick even before all this happened. She had been not feeling well for a while, so I was like, please just have her call her sister.
Yeah.
You
At
know,
the very least.
Oh, and then at the end, when I couldn't find grandma, she was home. She was waiting on me to call her back.
Yes,
and
please
her
let
phone
the
was
viewers know.
yes,
because
and her phone
that's
was
cliffhanger.
on. Yes, and her phone was on, but she just wasn't. It was just on my end, just going to voicemail. So I bought her a new phone. I'm putting her on my phone plan, put a warranty on the phone, so I could just have that peace of mind.
Yeah.
So stressful. And it just impacts my sleep and my work, and it just feels like I go through my day just in a haze sometimes, and I just can't get anything right. Like this morning, woke up, made my drink, big old Monster Energy drink. It's like a fake Dunkin' Energy. It's like a bootleg, so it's a Monster Energy and like syrup and ice. I go upstairs and I see it was like a little teeny little one of those teeny little gnats, but it literally freaked me out, and I like slid my chair back, knocked the whole thing down after I just took one sip, and it was just like, why? Like, I can't like just do simple things. Like, it just feels like I forget something, or I'm late, or everything. There's a huge accident for me. Okay, I'm half an hour late. I tried, and it's just sometimes, especially with the science, like this happens to me a lot in life, but lately it's like I've never worked so hard in the lab before, and to have it translate into the lab where it's just like things are just not working for me, or everything takes longer than it's supposed to, it's just really starting to weigh me down, and I just get really frustrated. And sometimes I feel like, we're just talking about energy. Sometimes it's apparent to other people too. So it's like I feel like I don't even get to connect with my coworkers properly because they feel like a weird vibe about me. Like, it's kind of weird. Like, and it's just like I'm just so frustrated at myself. And so I don't know. I don't know if I have any answers for it. I just keep pushing through because I have no choice. I'm here now. I push so hard to get to this job and stuff. Like I can't back out. But it's just like I can see where certain qualities or weaknesses don't just go away as you get older, or as you become more accomplished. There's still setbacks and things that kind of bite you.
For sure. And I think as far as with your aunt, you guys, I think, just need space. Time will heal that. I think just to have some time away from each other and really sitting with that, because maybe now that her kids know that there was a respectful way that you went about it at first, maybe they'll be able to talk to her and like calm her down, and then you guys can figure it out going forward. But as far as your normal everyday life,
I mean, you get a full life, like not even a full preview. You get to see, at least on Sundays, what it's been really hardly. I don't know what it is, but it feels like it's just on like Supercharged is just like the.
I just think you take on too much sometimes. And I think maybe it's just, I don't know. I feel like maybe you don't say no enough.
I know, but I do, because if I really don't want to do it, I'm just like, no. But when it comes to what I see as life goals and things I find important, I don't. Like when it comes to work, I want to do well. Like my boss tells me step up in a certain arena. It's like, all right, well, I'm really struggling just to do the little bit I am now, but yes, I will do more.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, is everything okay? Yep, I'm good. At least when it comes to work. I learned that the hard way with my graduate school is you can't let them see you sweating. Like, because once they do, it's just like, if you don't make it, it's just like, oh, you're not doing, you know what I mean? But it's like, if you just like, yep, it's all fine. And I'm not having like a mental breakdown in front of them. Like, it's a little less difficult. Fake it till you make it.
Yeah. Maybe just the stuff outside of work.
Yeah.
You probably add too much to your table. But maybe,
But I mean, like the podcast, that it takes a ton of work, as you know.
Yes.
Even the two of us, I couldn't imagine doing it by myself because the two of us, it is a lot of work.
It is.
And there's still a lot more that we want to do with it. And it's the same
Yes.
thing. It's things we want to do. It's not like, oh, this is a chore or burden, but it doesn't make it easy. And then the genealogy is really, really important to me. I mean,
which I'm really
that's
excited
literally
about.
like, I have a free moment. Oh my God, if like you give me a whole afternoon, like, you know how they say, oh, find your passion by like, what would you do if you had a whole day to do something? Mm-hmm. And I mean, first it's like, okay, I'd probably sleep the day away, but there's no there's no passion with sleeping. So I guess I'm going to choose something real like that I would do awake.
Speak for
yeah,
yourself.
something I have to do awake. I mean, but then would be like eating or something. Like, so then it's like, okay, other than basic functions, what would you do? Other than life needs, like say you're a sim and your life bars are full, what would you actually do with your time? And usually it's genealogy. If I had a full weekend and there's nothing else to do, I'm like looking at documents, cracking cases, digging through Google pages, going on Facebooks. And so for me, it's like, I could say no, but I don't know. I don't know the answer for it, but my friend had a perfect phrase for it. And she said, I have more brain than body. Like more in my mind that I want to do than the ability and physical capability to do it all.
Sounds right. I mean, I think this question would be a great question to pose on the Instagram and say, you know, what would you do with an afternoon to, you know, focus on something that you truly love?
Yes. And not needs based, you know,
Exactly.
Food, sleep, showering, or even self-care. That is, you know, not a
passion.
Yeah, it should be. But, you know, it's, you know, we need those things. Those shouldn't be, you know, like I feel like a passion sometimes is like fulfillment after you have the normal basic shelter, you know, your basic needs met.
Yeah.
So that, you know, that's assuming that all those basic needs are met first and you're not so worn out that you have a free day. All you want to do is take care of those needs. And so definitely think about that because it will definitely help you figure out where you want to put your time. But I'm just finding it really hard. I think when Cliff and I got back together, my son was young, and he was just like, you don't have any hobbies. And I was like, life is my hobby.
So
like, you know what I mean?
What you're saying here, where we're going, is we're blaming Cliff
No.
for all of this stress because he said you had no hobbies and then you took on every single thing that came in front of you. And now you're like, look, Cliff, you happy?
Right now,
happy
now he doesn't see me. I mean, we've had those issues there, you know, that impacts things like that. Like, you know, your relationship. My husband's just like, I like literally live with you and I barely see you or barely talk to you. But it's just, for me, it's just like all the things I want to do. And it's like, I've spent a lot of my life being forced to do things I didn't want to do or I didn't get to have a choice in. So it's like, I chose this job. I chose this career path. You know, I choose podcasting and genealogy. It's like, you know, it's so hard to not want to do it. But I don't know. Some things has to give because, I mean, it's 6 months into my job. I thought things would get easier and I'd have more time, but it looks like they're kind of just piling more on me, which is kind of the last thing I need. Yeah. So on that note, I'm taking a vacation in a couple weeks. Thank goodness. Probably by the time this episode comes out, I'll be on vacation.
Yes.
So I at least can have a mini reset and I can do whatever I want. And at least it doesn't involve me going to work every single day.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the swindle too. They told me with this business it was going to be work-life balance. Mm-hmm. I'm not seeing the life balance. But that could be my fault because, like I said, and then on top of the genealogy and this podcast, I'm also affiliate research scientist at the university I went to for graduate school. So I'm still writing papers, doing computational work on projects, and I've been doing that mostly at night. So, and I only have a limited time before it falls out my brain, or like they change the way that the setup is that I can't. I'm not fitting. I'm not learning that whole system again if they decide to upgrade it. So
Yeah. So how long is that gonna last?
I mean, the appointment lasts until June of next year, but I have one more project I'm working on for someone else. So this is where you can say that. This is where I don't say no, because this is for a dear friend of mine. She needs these publications to move on with her career. This is really important for the path she's taking. Mm-hmm. It's more important to me to see her get it than it is for me to get the publication. But I don't know. I got so good at doing that. It's just like, I would, if I could choose, I would use that to help her. So, and she helped me a lot when I was in graduate school, even learning how to do that. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that is something, but it's really been weighing on me because as everything, it's taken me longer, and it's like, oh, I thought, it's just going to go more smoothly. Everything was just going to be ready to go. And I'm moving very slowly on it, and it weighs on me. It stresses me out. Like, I think about it at night, and so but I've been chipping away at that. So that's actually made major project progress this week, because I just got tired of that like sinking feeling in my stomach that it's just like, okay, I'm letting my good friend down because I'm not on this. And I mean, yeah. And then it's every other weekend I'm either leaving town, or I'm going to work, or I'm coming here. I don't know. Sorry to keep going on about it, but I needed to get that out.
I'm sure. This is a quick little Dr. Alicia therapy session. I don't think she has space right now to go to an actual therapist with all the
yeah.
The
so
time,
now you are now the Dr. Melinda.
Oh God, I finally
Let's
got
switch.
My doctor.
Yeah, we're gonna call this episode Dr. Melinda and Alicia Yvette.
Oh my goodness, that's funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, as far as for me, I've been doing a lot of thinking about getting back into my soap business and being a little more on top of it, because I've kind of just let it go, and I just got so immersed into this podcast stuff. And I think I love soap. I thought I mean, it's therapeutic for me. It's very like calming to me. Like, I enjoy it. I just play some music, and then maybe I'm like a baby scientist,
And they're so pretty.
I'm like, pour a little bit of this. Gotta make sure I'm weighing stuff, making sure I'm using my little stuff here, like making sure I'm putting just enough of everything. So I'm a scientist in my own right.
Yes. I mean, it's a detergent, which will have certain chemical properties. So, the amount of water to oil to detergent is really important to the consistency. You can get different types of products based on how you balance it.
So for me, I think I'm going to try to get more into it. I started with my soap business with Melt and Pour Soap, which is a more beginner-friendly soap experience. So basically, they've already done the soapification process for you. So you're just buying the soaps, and then you're melting them down, and then you're designing and adding fragrance and scents, and in that realm. So what I want to get into is cold processing soap, which is the oils and all that. And with that, when you make a soap today, you're not even able to sell that soap until a month from now. So that's exciting to like have to watch basically my soap cure and like see what I actually did. So I really was interested in getting into cold processing soap, but when I started my soap business, it was during the pandemic, and obviously you're not going to learn anything by just doing the YouTube. For me, it doesn't work. I need hands-on. I need to be in a class learning it and being able to ask my questions real time. So I want to start looking into that and seeing where I can actually go and learn how to properly do that, because that's a really serious thing, because like you said, these are detergents. These are things that are going on people's body. You want to make sure that you're doing it correctly. So right now, all of my soaps are Melt and Pour as of right now. But I'm thinking of like just getting back into it, lower the prices, have more fun with it. And I mean, I've done some soaps for wedding parties, baby showers. So, I mean, if you guys are interested, I'm really contemplating coming back to it. It's on Instagram. It's at m.y.everything underscore, I believe. But anyway, we'll get into that. I'll probably link it in our Instagram. But yeah, it's called My Everything, and it's my as a play on words because my initials are MY. So Melinda Yvette. So that's what I think I want to try to get back into and just find my relaxation space again, because I feel like me too, like granted I don't have as much going on as you, but I do feel a lot of stress with just the things that I'm going with, and I just loved soap because it calmed me down and it was something I enjoyed. But podcasts is definitely like, I think is my first love.
We've invested a lot into this already, and
I love it.
And I'm enjoying it too, and that's why, it's slow until I get that wind again, because I don't like to stop things. It's so hard to pick things back up if you just completely drop it. It's like the longer it goes, the more of a heavier rock it is to pick it back up.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about, my soap.
Yes, but I think what I like to do a lot is, it's been working with me with the podcast and the genealogies. I join a lot of Facebook groups. It does actually take out some of the toxicity of Facebook, because you find people who are really passionate about what you are, and I learn things all the time just by scrolling by my feed, because like you said, YouTube is not reality. And there's actually people dedicated on YouTube to trying out things that they saw on YouTube and showing like what really happens when a normal person does it. But these are usually people like post a question like, how do you edit this? And I'll see like 12 answers. And it's like, oh, there's like way other ways that you could do this. And that's actually some of what gave me ideas on how to figure this out in the beginning, was the Facebook groups of people with their tips. Like, use this program, try this, or do it this way. So with the soap, you could find groups that feature people who are really into it, into the chemistry, into the properties, or trying different things. And then maybe, they join this group and someone posts like a fail experiment, and then there's all these people who are experts, like, you forgot to do this step. That's how you kind of can get that experience, by connecting with others too.
Yeah.
And it's really good, because you don't even think you have the question until you see someone else ask it, and and other people are answering, and you're like, oh, I thought I knew the answer, but there's like 17 different ways to approach this.
And I think that's one of the things that I lack, is the networking aspect of it. I like to do what I do, and like I am so focused on that I don't think to ask questions, like talk to other people and like interact with people. So that's why I'm like, Alicia, you're gonna have to start talking to people, because I'm like,
but when you're in
this.
business, you have to. And I think my grandfather, I would love to have him on, but he is a talker. He taught me that growing up, and it's just like connecting with people is really the way to support other people, and they'll support you in return when you do that. Like, I mean, I support all my friends in their endeavors, no matter what it is. And
See, I think I'm like a one person at a time type of person. Like, I will hear your story and I'd be like, oh my God, I want to support you. This is how I'm going to help you, blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to just do this. But then like the idea of talking to multiple people in a group in just a big space where everyone's going to talk and then have something to say, that I just cower. I just cower, because I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but I mean, great. You're doing great. Like, I can't talk. I feel like maybe I just second guess myself, and I don't feel like I know as much as I know, but maybe I do, but I don't give myself a chance. So I get really worried. So I'm just going to ease my way into that. Like, I do handle a lot of the Instagram stuff. Like, I do the contents and stuff, and I try to like, do our stories. Like, I've showed my face once. That was crazy.
Yes.
That was wild. And I thought that was a huge step, but it was only there for 24 hours. So. But I try to like comment a little bit. Like yesterday, somebody put a butterfly on one of our posts. So I liked it and I pinned them. So, and like I was like, oh, look at that. Look at me. Like, I'm an idiot. But that felt big for me. And I was really excited. I forgot to text you about it. But I was really excited to see that somebody actually
made it.
Yeah, and commented the butterfly. You're trying to figure out what the heck are you talking about? What does this butterfly mean? Well, we had implemented a way to figure out what kind of listener are you? Are you a beginner listener? Are you a sporadic listener? Or have you listened to every single one? So if you're new, you'd put an egg emoji. If you've listened to a few, you haven't gotten to all of them, you'd put a caterpillar emoji. And if you've listened to every single one, you'll put a butterfly. So seeing a butterfly was major.
Yes, because we've seen a lot of caterpillars.
Yeah, I was super
And we're
major.
just so happy for everyone who's been like taking the time to listen and support us and share our link.
Absolutely.
I've been doing a little bit of work on the YouTube, so make sure you check out our YouTube page. We're starting to get some followers there, which is so exciting. We're starting to get views. And our Anchor, please follow that. Apple Podcast, Instagram. We will soon be starting a Facebook because I'm much better interacting on Facebook.
Yes. So we're just going to have everything
We're just going to be able to reach you everywhere.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to juke us nowhere. You're going to find us in every corner. So please just follow us. Love us. We want to love on you.
Yes. And, let's wrap up this episode because I think I was a little bit, self-sobbing and, a little bit beating on myself and the qualities about myself a little bit. And I think we should both try something, and every negative quality has a positive aspect. Like, if you're a jerk, that means you're not too nice. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's always that, quality that, so there are certain things I think that I tend to sometimes be so impulsive that I don't care what people think because I literally do it and then I'm like, oops, I probably shouldn't even have said that. But it's just like I don't which I think has really helped me a lot in life because I'm just that person to dive in. Like, I don't care if I look dumb or I'm that first person. I have no problem doing that. And that's really helped me a lot.
And you see, with me, I've been an overthinker.
Yes.
So we balance each other out a lot in that way because I am an overthinker. I'm like, oh, my God, what if I do this wrong? And then everybody's going to hear that. And then what if I do this wrong? And I'm thinking of every negative aspect that could possibly go wrong when really I should just try, which is how I got into the soap business because I was overthinking it for years. And then I was like, you know what? I have nothing but time right now. I'm just going to try, see what happens,
And you should really try to think about, if it was your friend doing it, how would you feel about it?
I know.
You're going to expect them to make mistakes, but you're still going to support anyways, You're maybe not, if say your best friend had a podcast, and say it's, they have an episode that's not the best, and you're like, okay, well, it wasn't the best, but okay, you move on. The advice you would give someone else is usually totally different than how you feel in your own head.
I would cheerlead. I would be cheerleading for them every step of the way, even through failure. So why don't I do that for myself?
You have to be your own best friend. Yes. Yeah. You have to be your own best. And I honestly give people that advice sometimes when they're really on, how would you feel if your best friend was doing it? What would you tell them, if they were worried about something that they're doing and it's probably going to be fine.
Yeah. I think this just goes back to what I said back in the postpartum episode. I just have this ideology in my head that I need to break that I feel like I'm undeserving. I don't deserve to have that cheerleading. I feel more apt to cheerlead for someone else than I would for myself. And that's something I need to break. That's something I need to work on. But
because that person's no more special than you. So it's if you take yourself out of it and look at yourself like you're just any old stranger on the street who you're just yeah, you're doing good.
Yeah.
You're not really going to look at all the things that you might be looking at with your own critical eye. But, I would definitely say, for your positive flip, you're more of the planner, the attention to detail, the more thought and organization behind things. I'm more of I just come in and go. So we can't both be like that. And we can't both be like you, because then neither way would work. So it's remember that even your weaknesses come with hidden strengths that even in certain situations, those will actually help you.
Yeah. Thank you. You're great too.
I'm trying. I don't know, but I'm figuring it out. I'm trying to keep improving, and that's why I want to have this episode. It wasn't just to vent or to bash anyone.
Yeah.
I actually feel really bad about my behavior, and really something that's been weighing on me all week. Part of why I'm not sleeping, and it makes things even more difficult when I need to do things. But I thought it would be important to discuss. And maybe if anyone's out there listening that might have acted out in anger or taking things and, you know, there was offense there, but you just know you probably didn't have to do all that. I'm with you. I'm struggling too.
My bad.
Yeah, but, you know, I think for me, again, negative trait. Well, I'm very passionate about the people I love. So, you know, like, we should try to practice that more, is that instead of, you know, saying, why am I like this? Or, oh, I hate that I'm like this. Try to find that, you know, and do it with other people too if you see that they have a negative trait. Like, if someone's unorganized and it's like, oh, well, they are more carefree and more, you know, like.
That's what I do when you're late.
Yeah. Except I'm not carefree. I'm a ball of anxiety, and I almost feel like it's contagious because I feel like you're starting to like.
Oh my God, it's killing me.
I do this to people all the time. Is like, apparently, like, all the stuff I do, it's like I push other people around me to want to do more, and then they're stressed too, and I'm like, don't do that. Don't.
And exactly. And this is bad because I told you, didn't I tell you the last time where I said I left my house late on purpose because I knew you were going to be late, and I still got here on time before you. And I'm like, what the heck? And now you're making me want to go late because I know you're going to be late. No,
and then we get here on time, and then we can't even get in because we're not. They probably were like, oh, they're not even gonna come till 10:30.
Yeah, exactly.
That's probably exactly what it was.
Exactly, because they're getting to know us, and they're probably like, oh, well, they're always late.
Yeah, they're booked at 10, but they don't come till like 10:30, so we had to wait like 20 minutes.
Shame.
And then we had technical errors, so I'm just like, you know what?
Lord.
I'm gonna be late, but most of the time I'm gonna be there.
Yeah, I mean, it's not most of the time. She is here. It's just she won't be on time here. So let's just be clear, because you do show up.
Yes, and the conversation flows every time. That's a good thing, too, is we don't show up, but we never walk away with no episode. That hasn't happened either.
Yeah.
We always walk away with, like, good content, and I don't feel like we've been short for time. If anything, this stuff is so good. They get longer and longer.
Yes. Holy moly.
We're talking more and more.
Yeah, I've been looking at the times, and I'm like, oh, my God, we're just, like, adding a few more minutes here, adding a few minutes
there. We
there.
were worried.
Yeah. So, anyway.
With that, yes, we will wrap this up because I think, but when I vent, it goes on forever.
We're
so,
rambling.
Yes.
We're rambling.
But really enjoy this episode. I mean, how are we supposed to keep making episodes if we don't got nothing to talk about? So, that's been my life in a nutshell. Part of this podcast was to keep it real and let everybody know I will eventually get it together, but not quite yet. So for everybody else who's in the same boat, just remember, life comes together eventually.
And I'll pray for you.
Thanks for listening. Tune in with us for our next episode.
Please follow us on Spotify, Apple Music, and Anchor FM. And we're also on Instagram and YouTube, which can be found in the description links.
Make sure you comment and let us know what you want to hear in future episodes.